Okay, now this part of the wiring swap is probably going to be the most stressful for me personally. I ripped out the gasket here that holds all the wiring in. This is your hood release cable. You obviously can't delete that. But the rest of this stuff, I have to pick through and make sure I don't delete anything I need and that I keep everything that I do need. So this part is going to be me picking out everything that I know I'm going to use and snipping off all the rest of it. I'm not sure how I'm going to pull. I'm going to pull them all through there, and they're going to have to get rerouted into the hole on the side here, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do as far as the ones that I snip. The ones that I snip, I don't need, so I can delete them, but I don't know if I'm going to pull them out separately before I pull the ones I do through this and then de-pin it in the harness in there. Some of them are going to be some kind of long leads that go to the ECU. So I'm going to get started in here. It's going to take me a long time to finish this part, I think probably an hour. I'll video most of it, do the time lapse for it. We'll see how it turns out. Alright, so that kind of ends this part of it. Oh, there's one I missed. This stuff is all going to get ripped out back through the firewall. I've already taken out almost every wire that needs to get deleted from this harness. Obviously there's certain ones like these that you got to pick through and make sure you don't forget. But most of the rest of this is going to get used. Some of this is main power, so you really want to be careful what you're cutting out of here. This is all the stuff that powers on the car. And then the rest of this is all the peripherals that run up, like your headlights and marker lights and turn signals. So what I'm going to do here now is go crawl in the car, and then I'm going to start pulling the ones out that I've already pushed through, going through, ripping those out of the harness here. I'm not going to video that because it'd be really boring. You just see me digging around in the dash. I'll come back to it once I've tried to push all of these back through the firewall, and then they're going to come out down here in this hole that I cut. Not sure how well you can see that. What I did is take a Sawzall, I cut out this first, and then realized that in order to get a drill head by, you got to cut out more, so I had to cut down here and up. So what I did was cut a 1-inch hole there. That's where I think I'm going to be able to fit all the wires that need to come back through this way out. Then I'm going to have to get a rubber grommet to cover that up after I prime all of this so I don't get any rust going on in here. So I'm going to cut back now and start ripping them out in the chassis here, the ones I don't need. And then I'll come back when I'm actually running it through the new hole for all the wires that are going to run the front here for the tuck. Alright, you can see here we've come to this part of the swap. This is pretty entertaining to say the least. The wiring, the way it looks here, looks more complicated than it really is. It did take a really long time to get to this point, so I'm going to go try to explain as easily as I can and try to make as much sense as I can of the wiring here. This is all still completely stock wiring in the first gen chassis. So what I've got going on here is all the wires that come through the firewall on the driver's side by the brake booster on these left-hand drive cars, obviously. So first I'll show you here is the transmission wiring I've got separated out here. This was originally an automatic tranny, so you can see that here. This is the neutral switch that they run. Must be in every chassis, even the autos. So that's the transmission wiring that I'm going to be putting in a different spot than where it is right now. This hanging down is relay, I believe. Yeah, check lamp relay. That's normally up in here. So then next I'll show you what I have going on for the fuse box. The stock fusible links in these sit up in the left corner of the car, up by the battery, obviously. So when you're doing this, if you don't want to run the battery up there anymore, you got to move the fusible links too, or you can run wires all the way up there. But what I'm going to choose to do here is actually run the wires back into the bin with the battery, with the fuse box. I'm running the second gen fuse box. So here you can see these 3 wires are all going to be run back to the battery bin. This one here, we have the head fuse that was in the head fusible link that runs like the whole interior and the lights as far as I can tell. This skinny red one here is the retractor fuse in the box. That's for the headlight motor retractor. And then this big one here is the main that comes from the alternator. To do these, the 2 red and white ones here, the main and the retractor one, I had to put in big extension wires to get them to come even close, and I'm going to have to extend them again here. So those are getting extended back into the battery bay here, so I'll put those off to the side here. This black and white wire here you can see, this comes off of the ignition switch and powers on the car when you put it on or start. It's actually an on. These power on the coils and the igniters and stuff in the stock car, but I don't need them to run in the front like they did before. So I'm keeping all these wires separate for now. These will be run to the FC coils in this car. So now I've done the battery stuff, ignition wire. This is going to go through the firewall, or through the fender liner, where it normally would have gone through the firewall. And then this stuff I've got separated here on my right is for what I'm going to run up and through the, up over the transmission tunnel and over to the right side here. This stuff that I'm running to the right side over here is the oscillator here. This is the oscillator. Runs a bunch of different stuff in the car. You have to run it as far as I can tell. The X08 plug, I believe this is. This is for the it runs a bunch of the stuff in the car. It's a connector that runs between the front and engine harnesses. So I'm going to pull apart the engine harness here in a little bit and make sure that that's okay to run. And then we have the washer pump and washer level. Why they ran them all the way from the driver's side all the way back around on the passenger side, I'll never know, because the lead is going to be way shorter doing it that way. So I got X08 oscillator and washer going that way. Then you have to make sure to ground everything. This is the wire from the choke check relay that I believe you also have to run. I'm going to run it because I've saw so much of the stuff in the car runs off of that. So this comes from the choke check relay and goes into the X08 plug. So that is what's going to be on the right side with a bunch of more FC wires as well. So this left side harness that's left, I've touched on quite a bit earlier, is what is the basically just the lights and the alternators over here right now and the AC. So I'll go through here. This is one bundle. This bundle here is the big one. Starting from the first plug here, this is the left side turn signal, the left side marker light, the left side headlight, the horn here is 2 green pins. This is a grounding strap. I'll touch on that in just a minute. There is a stock one in here anyways, but the grounding strap is in there. Then if we go further down the line here, we have the number 2 temperature switch on the bottom of the radiator. And on the end here, we have the end of the grounding strap, what would be the right side turn signal, the right marker light, and the right side headlight. What I'm going to touch on with the grounding strap, as you can see here, the grounding strap, I actually made this end to it, and I added this big thick wire to the end. This grounds the right side marker and the right side turn signal over here. I ran the ground strap down in here and then attached it to the stock ground strap that's also right here. This stock ground strap has a bunch of little grounds that come off of it for all these little components. When you've got it out and apart, I prefer to do all the grounding at once. So I made sure to run everything on that stock ground strap as it was, and then I added a little bit of that extra length in another connector, so I'll get 2 chassis grounds off of this one cable just to make sure everything's grounded correctly. So that's what's going to run the lights, and then this blue wire here is actually the extension from the AC relay. This is going to run to the clutch on the AC compressor. And then these 2 blue ends here are for the that little can that I can't remember the name of right now for the AC. It's just escaping my brain right now. Then the alternator here. This is the alternator, big, long, thick cable that runs in. This also gets attached to the main fuse. So this is where it would have originally connected to the main fusible link, but I extended it and spliced way into it, way up in the chassis harness, so that I didn't have to run as long of a wire and that I didn't have to run a wire back all the way from there. So that's that stuff, and then the only thing left that's going to be on this harness are these plugs, this one here, and this one. They are identical. They are the right and left side headlight motor retractor pieces, I guess. These are necessary to lift and lower the headlights, obviously. On one of these plugs here, see if I can find it, right here, if you can see that, that's where I spliced in for the what would be the retractor part of the battery that I went over first here. So this retractor line comes from right here and backwards all the way through and then up and over. So that's going to go back to the battery bin. So that's just kind of a general overview of where the wires are and where they're going to go and where I'm moving them. I'm going to crawl down in here and show you where I mounted the choke check relay and the AC relay. Now, if you're going to consider doing this, you better get really used to this view right here, because you're going to be in here a lot. This probably sounds really echoey and cool right now. If you can see here, this is the AC relay. It's got diode written on the side of it. And then this is the choke check relay that I was able to ground in here. You can see that they're bolted to the side of the car. Mazda is nice enough to actually put some threaded bolts in their stock. So I took a wire wheel, cleaned those off so they have a really good ground. And then grounded them with each have a grounding strap behind them. You can't see the main, the choke check relay really well unless I move it. But it's off of the stock plug. It's grounded behind it as well, so it's grounded twice. And then all the AC does is I ran that up and over the pedal box. So it runs up and over and to the AC, and the AC got pulled through. That's kind of a nightmare to get out if you've never done it. But got that out eventually. And then all of this here, besides the transmission stuff, is going to get run up and through. So this little bundle here, I am hoping that this is able to fit through that 1-inch hole. I got a 7/8" grommet, so hopefully this is going to stretch that out enough and be pretty watertight. I'm going to do some electrical water seal there. So that's kind of the overview of what's going on in here right now. I'm going to end up drawing a bunch of diagrams for this again, and then I'm going to do highlighting on the old wiring diagrams as well for what I kept and what I deleted and where I ran certain things. Here, just real quick, you can see the splice that I made for the main fuse and the fuse block here. And then all these little things are where I deleted them. Make sure you tape them up, but also don't run like a spliced end on it. You gotta separate them all and then tape them together. You don't want anything making contact with something else it's not supposed to. So that's kind of the overview of what I've done here. This is all stock wiring stuff here that gets plugged in. This ends up sitting in a bracket way up in here that connects up in here. So that's obviously got to be plugged back in once I put everything back.